I'm hopping on here for a few minutes to talk about self-assessment. This is something that I do regularly, and it is about to be a new month. We're at the end. Well, it's as I'm recording this, it is we just finished really the first week of summer officially, and we're also about to begin a new month. But no matter when you're watching this, just something that I want to share is why this aspect of self-assessment is important, and really just to create the space for you to tap in with yourself and ask yourself, are you checking in with yourself? Are you doing a self-assessment? What does that look like for you? But why is it important in the first place? So I just shared in my stories, and you also see this on my IG feed, this post about slow progress or no progress. And one of the reasons why I created that post is because no matter what area of your life, right, if you don't check in with yourself and start to really look at what is required, what you need, what you want, and what you have, and by what you have, meaning what do you have the capacity for? When it comes to what you want, what do you want to experience? And when it comes to what you need, like what are those basic essential things that are going to really help you meet those basic needs? That's something that you need to determine. And if you're not taking time to explore those things and get clarity around those things, then everything is going to continue to feel like you are on a hamster wheel, or like you are just moving around in circles. And so that's just something to think about when it comes to where you are in your journey, whether this is health, spirituality, life in general, career, relationships, whatever. This is something you can apply to any aspect of your life. And it's important to just be mindful to not do this from a place of like judging yourself negatively, right? But be real with yourself. Like allow yourself to be honest and come from a point of like looking at your behavior, looking at your habits, looking at tuning into your emotions and your mindset and your beliefs around certain things. This is a practice that I do regularly, and regular doesn't have to mean every single day, right? So this is something I definitely make time to do towards the end of the month as I'm preparing to go into a new month. And I'm looking at relationships, finances, I'm looking at my health and fitness. I'm looking at my spiritual practice. I'm looking at, like, tuning into like my mindset, whatever categories are really essential for you. That's something that I like to use as like kind of these pillars. And I take this aspect of self-assessment and I review those things, because I don't want to look back and let me know if this has ever happened to you, where you set things in motion, you set intentions, and then 6 months later, you're really in the same place. Or a year later, you're in the same place. So you haven't really gotten as far as you wanted to go. And one of the ways to mitigate that and reduce that stagnation is to self-assess. And people tend to avoid this because they don't want to have to deal with or admit that they're not actually clear on what they want. So that's something to think about. Are you really clear on what you want? Are you clear on what you need? Are you clear on what is required for that to actually take place? Are you clear on what you have the capacity for? Because if you did, maybe at one point, maybe 2 years ago, your capacity was different compared to what it is now. You know what I mean? And that's something I deal with all the time, right? What I had the capacity for however many months ago, however many years ago, like sometimes we want a result that we experienced in the past, but our capacity is different. Our obligations are different. And this is why, like, you have to give yourself grace in these moments as well. because you're not beating yourself up thinking that you're a failure because you can't do the things in the same way that you did them before. But sometimes you don't have the capacity to do it in the same way, so you have to adapt, you have to adjust. And so when you take this from a logical point of view and not just focus on your emotions and feeling bad about the situation, yeah, you cannot like it. But then what are you going to do about it? If you're just going to beat yourself up emotionally, that's not going to support you. That's not going to be, that's going to just keep you stuck. You're going to lose confidence in yourself, and then you're going to feel like you can't do it. And you can start to spiral in that way. You can start to just lose faith in your ability to move forward. And and the reason why I'm sharing this is to help you move out of that, because I've been in that space before. And so I have to catch myself. It's like, oh, wait, nope. Let's look at the data. Let's look at what's true. What's true based on your capacity? What's true based on what you want versus what you need, and what's most important? Because if you don't meet your needs first, then the wants, you keep chasing the wants before you meet your needs, there's always going to be a deficit. And you can quickly lose motivation if you don't address your needs first. And then when it comes to setting expectations for what is required, start to think about that, like, especially if there's a time frame for which you're trying to reach a specific result. Do you have the capacity to do all that is required to get to that result that you're wanting within a certain time frame? Sometimes that's not always realistic. You need to dial it back a little bit. So, and that's usually a hard one to really tap into and be realistic about, because I mentioned earlier, I have a post on my IG feed, and I just posted it in my stories about, would you prefer slow progress or no progress? And if you're at a point where like you don't want to choose either one of those and you're feeling some kind of way about the post, then be sure to tune into what's actually in the caption of that post. And in that, as a matter of fact, let me pull it up on my tablet and read it to you, and just share some of the questions that I shared in the slide, because it's through that it can help you get a little bit of clarity. So some of the questions, if you're not seeing progress fast enough, I have 5 questions here to help you evaluate where you might be stuck. And this is an aspect of self-assessment, as I was mentioning earlier. So this is an example of that. So the first question is, did I set a time frame to reach a specific result? And that's something you need to be mindful of. Is it even a requirement? Is it something? Do you need a time frame? And a time frame could be a month. A time frame could be a season. I talk about seasons all the time, right? So where do you want to be by the end of the summer season? Where do you want to be by the end of the winter season? The second question, what do I consider to be fast enough? So sometimes we have to set our expectations around what is fast, right? If you see something on Instagram and they're doing like a time lapse of their progress, like that's not real life. That's everything sped up. What is that going to look like? What's fast enough going to look like for you realistically? Question number 3, did I break down the tasks, mindset, skill set, energy capacity required to see the faster results? And I talked about this earlier, of like just really being mindful and getting clarity around what that needs to be, or what that should be, and where you're actually at mentally, physically, and emotionally, especially emotionally. Question number 4, did I assess my starting point? So do you already have experience, or are you a beginner? Are you doing something that you've done before, and so you don't need that, you don't have that learning curve? Or are you doing something completely new and you actually need a coach, you need a trainer, you need someone that has experience, you need someone that can guide you, or you need a resource to give you that information? Because your starting point is going to play a huge role. If you're doing something that you've never done before, there might be a learning curve that you're going to have to work through first before you're going to get that speed. So you're going to need depth before you can get the speed. Question number 5 is, do I feel confident enough to start, stay consistent, and accountable on my own? If not, what type of support will keep me on track? So let me say that again. Do I feel confident enough to start, stay consistent, and accountable on my own? If not, what type of support will keep me on track? And that accountability piece is key. So you have that self-accountability, that personal accountability, and you have that social accountability. So what do you need based on the season that you're in? For some of you, you might already have a high level of self-accountability, and you don't need that. And accountability is going to look different from one person to another. So that's just something to be mindful of when it comes to where you're starting with your confidence level. And especially if you're a beginner, you might not be as confident and need some accountability compared to someone that has been doing the thing for a while and they're just taking things to another level. So just something to think about. And yeah, I hope that was helpful, and have a good day.